Imagine waking up one morning to discover that one policy change on the other side of the world has just crippled Europe's car factories, shaken global chip production, and placed the Netherlands at the center of a geopolitical storm it never wanted. That's exactly what happened when China pulled the brake on rare earth exports. Materials so essential, so irreplaceable that the entire semiconductor industry depends on them. And the shockwaves? They've been brutal. Because this isn't just another headline about trade tensions. This is a structural hit that exposes how fragile and interconnected the world's most advanced technologies really are. Before we go deeper, if you find this kind of analysis valuable, give the video a quick like and share. It really helps more people discover the content. Now, let's rewind the story a bit. This crisis didn't appear out of thin air. It began with something that at first seemed technical and bureaucratic, but quickly spiraled into a geopolitical flashpoint: the sudden Dutch intervention in Nexperia. Nexperia, a major semiconductor company with deep Chinese ownership, had been running quietly and efficiently in the background of the global tech ecosystem. Its chips power everything from electric vehicles to industrial control systems. But on September 30th, Dutch authorities stepped in, citing broad concerns about economic security and management deficiencies. The Amsterdam Court of Appeal even removed the Chinese CEO without a hearing and shifted 99% of shares to a third-party trust. A dramatic move, especially since no clear evidence of wrongdoing was provided. Behind the scenes, however, another hand was guiding the pressure. The United States had just placed Nexperia's parent company, Wintech Technology, on its entity list. This blacklist effectively cuts off access to key tools and technologies, and when the US expanded those sanctions to include any subsidiary controlled above 50%, it crippled Nexperia's operations. That left the Netherlands in a position where it felt compelled to step in, and China took that very personally. Within a week, Beijing struck back in a direct and surgical way. China blocked Nexperia's China-based facilities from exporting their core products, especially automotive-grade chips. And because over 70% of Nexperia's manufacturing power sits inside China, the effects were instant and devastating. Capacity utilization crashed from 90% to under 10%. Deliveries to Europe collapsed from 95% to just 3%. In simple terms, the Netherlands may have seized the company, but China still controlled the machines that make the chips. And this is where the story starts to pull apart Europe's industrial backbone. Europe's automotive giants, long dependable and stable, were blindsided almost overnight. Volkswagen's massive Wolfsburg factory had to stop entire production lines, burning more than $100 million a day. BMW's Munich plant saw delivery times double. Within only 2 weeks, Europe lost over $3.5 billion in auto output, and more than 12,000 workers were pushed into temporary layoffs. The ACEA, Europe's Automotive Association, issued one of the sharpest warnings in its history. If supply wasn't restored, the damage could be irreversible. The reason Nexperia is so irreplaceable is simple: consistency and certification. Automotive-grade power semiconductors are not something you switch suppliers for overnight. A new supplier needs months, sometimes years, of testing, validation, and regulatory approval. And since 1/3 of Europe's auto suppliers rely exclusively on Nexperia, there was essentially no plan B. By early November, the political pressure became unbearable. Germany, France, and Italy threatened to activate a rarely mentioned clause under the EU Chips Act, essentially giving them the power to override Dutch authority and place Nexperia's European operations under broader EU control. That tells you just how desperate the situation had become. But the real turning point was yet to come. On December 1st, China rolled out its new export controls, not just on Nexperia, but on rare earths themselves. And this is where the story shifts from a company-specific conflict to a full-blown structural crisis in the global semiconductor supply chain. 2 clauses changed everything. First, the 0.1% rule. Now, any lithography-related product containing even a trace amount, a mere 0.1%, of China-origin rare earths requires an export license from Beijing. It doesn't matter where the product is assembled or how many steps removed it is. If it contains Chinese rare earths, China gets a say in whether it can leave the country. Second, any advanced semiconductor equipment, 14 nanometer and below logic, 256-layer memory, testing tools, and key materials, must undergo individual case-by-case reviews. In other words, China now controls the tap of the materials that make the world's most advanced chip-making machines possible. And the country at the center of that impact? The Netherlands, home to ASML. Now let's place a hook right here, because this is the part of the story most people still don't realize. ASML, the crown jewel of the Netherlands and the global leader in lithography, is deeply dependent on China for the raw materials behind its ultra-precise machinery. Think of rare earths like the vitamins your body needs. Tiny amounts, but without them, nothing functions properly. Cerium from China is required for the glass polishing that makes ASML's EUV lenses so precise. The motors inside these machines use more than 10 kilograms of rare earth permanent magnets. The magnetic levitation system, absolutely essential, depends on heavy rare earths like dysprosium and terbium. There is no alternative supplier who can match China's refinement capacity or purity levels. Not even close. Even the US, despite having rare earth mines, can only refine to around 92% purity. ASML needs 99.9%. ASML has tried to diversify. It has tried to replace rare earth magnets with ordinary materials. But performance dropped by nearly a third and production costs skyrocketed. So diversification became a polite way of saying, we tried, but we can't. And with China now controlling export licenses, ASML suddenly has a huge problem. Its existing rare earth inventory can last only about 8 weeks. After that, production of lithography machines could fall by up to 20 units per month. Annual revenue losses might exceed $3 billion, even under optimistic scenarios. And worst of all, long delays risk customers turning to alternative suppliers or simply slowing down their own technological roadmaps. Before we continue, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Europe handled the Nexperia situation correctly, or did it miscalculate China's response? Let's get a good discussion going. As this crisis unfolds, one thing becomes painfully clear. The Netherlands and Europe hold the intellectual property, the engineering brilliance, and the high-end technology. But China controls the materials and much of the production capacity. It's an imbalance that simply cannot hold forever. And it's not just Europe feeling the crunch. North America's car industry is already experiencing ripple effects. Honda has cut production at multiple plants. Factories in Ontario are running at half capacity. Brazil's auto sector has been hit as well. The global supply chain is so tightly woven that a shock in China instantly reverberates thousands of kilometers away. Attempts to decouple from China have, so far, failed. Not because countries lack motivation, but because they lack realistic alternatives. China spent decades building a rare earth ecosystem no one else invested in. Matching that ecosystem now would require trillions of dollars, years of effort, and a political consensus that simply doesn't exist in the West. What this crisis reveals is that supply chain fragility is becoming one of the defining strategic risks of our time. Companies can no longer assume that political tensions will stay in the background. Governments can no longer assume that economic leverage won't be used directly. Every decision, every sanction, every takeover now has real material consequences. This new era won't be defined by who has the most advanced chips, but by who can keep producing them when things go wrong. So where does all of this leave Europe, the Netherlands, China, and the global tech industry? It leaves them in a world that is more interconnected and more fragile than ever before. A world where a single dispute can shut down factories, freeze supply chains, and cost billions. A world where cooperation is becoming harder but more essential. And it leaves governments with a sobering realization. Securing supply chains isn't optional, it's strategic survival. Thank you for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next analysis. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next one.